Introduction to Zongmu. Shuo coincidentally obtained Zongmu, supported the Immortal Gate, and Zongmu has a long life. Chapter 1. Overview. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. 1. Vertical view. A deep underground ancient tomb has been excavated by national archaeologists for half a year, gradually penetrating into the center of the tomb. A group of archaeologists are carefully packing up some ancient artifacts. So many bronze artifacts. Yeah, Shuo, look at this pattern, it looks like it was from the Shang dynasty. It's hard to say, there are still some differences from the popular patterns of the Shang dynasty, but these patterns are very unfamiliar and not popular in various dynasties after the Shang dynasty. Do you think it could be from before the Shang dynasty? Zongmu. Suddenly, an excited voice came from the front. Brother Gu, come and take a look. There is a Zongmu here. Shuo took a few steps and arrived at a tomb. He saw a bronze statue that was half a person tall, with two eyes protruding high from their sockets. It was a type of bronze statue named Zongmu. Why do bronze statues with raised eyes have this kind of race, or do they represent a special meaning? The academic community has been debating endlessly, and there has been no results so far. This section is much larger than the previously excavated sections. As Shuo spoke, he leaned his head over and held a small brush in his hand, brushing on the bronze ware in his vertical gaze. Suddenly, his feet shook. There's an earthquake. Run quickly. Bang. A stone fell from the top of the cave and hit Shuo's head, with blood dripping onto the bronze statue. Shuo was blinded by the sudden burst of bright light. While the bronze statue burst out with dazzling light, a pair of vertical eyes suddenly cracked and peeled off. Inside were two long, protruding transparent vertical eyes, which flowed like flowing water into Shuo's eyes. Shuo was instantly blinded by the intense pain. The burst of light from the bronze statue drowned out Shuo. Dang 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 dang. Shuo swung an axe to chop down trees. He has been in this world called Xianxia continent for 3 days now, completely integrating the memories of this body. The name of this body is Shuo, which is one character different from his own name. The place where he is currently located is called Xianxia Mountain Range. The called Xianxia Mountain Range is because it has over 1,000 peaks, covering an extremely vast area, like countless giant dragons winding around the earth. Within the Xianxia Mountains, there are 4 second-rate sects, 18 third-rate sects, and countless small sects that do not enter the mainstream. That's right. This is a world of cultivating immortals. Shuo is a second-rate sect in the Xianxia Mountains, known as the miscellaneous disciple of the Qinyan sect. Shuo's family is located in a village in the Xianxia Mountains. His parents are still alive, and he has 8 brothers. He is 5 years old and 15 years old. As the saying goes, half a young man eats a poor old man. The ancient family couldn't afford to raise him anymore, so they sent him to the Qinyan sect as a miscellaneous disciple. For miscellaneous disciples, not to mention Qinyan sect, any sect in the Xianxia Mountains opens its doors wide, without the need to check your qualifications and talents. As long as you dare to come, the sect dares to accept them. Entering the sect, there are many things for you to do, such as chopping wood and carrying water. I also provide you with cultivation techniques, allowing you to practice on your own. But besides managing the food, there is nothing else. Don't even think about cultivation resources or anything. In fact, each sect employs cheap labor for housing, food, and employment. I've been keeping you working until you're 20 years old. If you haven't felt angry yet, then I'm sorry and I'll kick you out of the sect. However, those laborers and their parents didn't care, and they were still very happy. After all, the sect was in charge of food and housing, and by the time they were driven out, they were already a top-notch laborer who could support themselves when they returned home. Moreover, there is also a chance for miscellaneous disciples. If they can feel successful before the age of 20, they can further advance in the sect and no longer be miscellaneous disciples, but become named disciples. Just a few days after entering the sect, Gu Shuo was responsible for chopping materials. Every day at dawn, I have to go to the mountains and forests to chop wood, and then carry it back. On his 5th day of entering Qinyan sect, while chopping wood on the mountain, a fellow disciple next to him fell down a tree and hit him, killing him. Then, Gu Shuo turned into Gu Shuo. Gu Shuo has been here for 3 days, and these 3 days he feels hopeless. In fact, he adapted very quickly and started practicing the Qinyan quenching body technique on the first day. It's been 3 days and I haven't felt any progress. These 3 days, he also inquired about how many types of disciples the Xian continent sect had opened on that day. The first type is to cultivate the second generation. These people have been soaked in medication from their parents since birth, and even the influential generation will use advanced medication to wash the tendons and marrow of their offspring. Almost all of these second generations can feel qi at a very young age. He naturally became a disciple of the sect, not a laborer. The second type is to have excellent qualifications and talents. Although not a second-generation cultivator, at a young age, one can feel qi and naturally become a disciple of the sect without having to do odd jobs. But these two are not mainstream. The mainstream is still miscellaneous disciples, which means that the vast majority of disciples in the sect are promoted from miscellaneous disciples. This is the third type, but there are also differences between miscellaneous disciples and miscellaneous disciples. What's different? The difference between having money and not having money. Wealthy families send their children into the sect as miscellaneous disciples not because they cannot afford to support them, but because they want to become true disciples of the sect. So, the work of miscellaneous servants is not done by those miscellaneous disciples at all, but by servants brought by miscellaneous disciples from home. He only needs to cultivate. Moreover, the family will also spend money to purchase quenching liquid for them, helping them reach the peak of quenching as soon as possible and laying the foundation for their sense of qi. It's different for those without money, like Gu Shuo. I have to work on my own, without any body quenching medicine, I can only be practical. Slightly lacking in qualifications, in 5 years, not to mention feeling angry, even the peak of quenching body cannot be achieved. Wow! Gu Shuo chopped down a big tree, sat on the trunk to rest, and later had to cut it into sections before carrying it back. Gu Shuo, here. A gourd was thrown across from him. Gu Shuo took a sip of water and said to a young man of his age across from him, "Senior brother Xiang, have you made any progress in your cultivation?" Upon hearing this, Xiang Yuan immediately danced and said, "I broke through the 6th level of the bone realm yesterday." Gu Shuo's eyes showed a look of envy. This Xiang Yuan entered the sect 1 year earlier than him and, like him, came from a poor family. But it took a year for Xianxia to continuously break through the skin realm, flesh realm, and tendon realm, and now it has reached the 6th level of bone realm. Gu Shuo, should we go rush towards the waterfall this afternoon? Xiang Yuan remained excited. Yu reading www.yuyukangshu.net. Gu Shuo rolled his eyes and said, "I'm not even in the realm of skin. Do you think I can go for a waterfall?" Xiang Yuan suddenly lifted his head and looked into the air. The sound of clothes and clothing hunting echoed in the air, and Gu Shuo also looked up. He saw a green figure and a white figure flying forward and backward, stepping on the treetops. His clothes and clothing fluttered like a fairy, and he didn't lower his head to glance at Gu Shuo and Xiang Yuan as he passed by. "Senior brother Yu and senior sister Zhang." Xiang Yuan jumped up and climbed up a big tree. Gu Shuo also climbed up the tree and looked at the 2 people flying on the tree tops. "Junior sister, that's it here." Yu Feilong stopped on a branch, his feet seemed to be connected to the slender branch, and his body undulated with the rise and fall of the branch. Zhang Yinggu smiled and said, "Please guide me, senior brother." Chang. The 2 of them drew their swords, and this was the first time Gu Shuo had seen a master's move, so he couldn't help but concentrate his mental strength highly. Suddenly, Gu Shuo felt his eyes bulge outward, and at the same time, the scene in front of him changed. All the movements slowed down, as if decomposing them. Moreover, Zhang Yinggu's body, who had started, became transparent. He saw the bones, muscles, internal organs, and even blood vessels and meridians in her body. He saw that the person's skin, flesh, muscles, bones, and internal organs all produced a rhythm when he raised his hand. At the same time, a gas in the meridians surged like a river, as if echoing with heaven and earth. The sword in his hand emitted a light, and a sword shot out with a strong force, Pu Tong. Gu Shuo fell from the tree to the ground, and the sharp pain in his eyes made him faint. New book, seeking collection, seeking recommendation. Chapter 2. Skin Realm Level 1. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. De Co Lois Ara Trong Quatrin Lay Text. Chapter 3. Vertical Charge. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. De Co Lois Ara Trong Quatrin Lay Text. Chapter 4. Horizontal Punch. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Yes, rushing upstream towards the waterfall is called vertical rushing. At worst, it also requires cultivation during the gas refining period. People like us cannot even stand steadily. On the river, it is a horizontal collision, so it is called horizontal rushing. Counting from the back to the front, from the second wooden stake to the third wooden stake, within a width of about 100 meters, is the place where the meat realm cultivator confronts. Within a range of 100 meters from the third wooden stake to the fourth wooden stake, it is the place where the cultivator in the gene realm crosses. Within 100 meters from the fourth wooden stake to the fifth wooden stake, it is the place where the bone realm cultivator hedges. Within 100 meters from the fifth wooden stake to the sixth wooden stake, there is a place where the cultivators in the dirty realm are fighting against each other. We are all cultivators in the bone realm, so we are all in the fourth waterway. Look, Sister Hua. Gu Shuo followed Xiang Yuan's finger and saw that in the fourth waterway, Hua Su and his 4 companions were jumping into the water from the left bank and rushing towards the opposite bank. On the right bank, 4 cultivators also jumped into the water and rushed towards the left bank. Let's go down and take a look. The 3 of them ran along the mountain path towards the river, while Xiang Yuanhuan explained to Gu Shuo. Horizontal confrontation is also a situation where each side has 4 people. Both sides agree that the 2 sides will hedge against each other. The 2 sides can choose not to engage in a confrontation, and determine who will arrive on the other side first based on their respective speeds. Ultimately, it also depends on which side will arrive on the other side first. Sister Hua and her team have already won 34, ranking second in the Bone Realm area, who is first. A team of the Great Weapon Sect. They won 36 consecutive victories. The team currently fighting against Senior Sister Hua is the team of the Great Weapon Sect. Senior Brother Xiang, haven't you cultivated spiritual power in the Bone Realm? Yes. That doesn't have spiritual power, do we still need someone in the 4th position? He hasn't cultivated wood and water systems either. Isn't this cultivating tacit understanding? Waiting for everyone to break through the qi refining stage will make us a very mature team. Gu Shuo, don't underestimate this waterfall. This is a very effective way of cultivation. When we go out to do tasks in the future, if we encounter unexpected situations and cooperate with the tacit understanding team, we will have more opportunities to survive. Not good. At this point, the 3 of them had already run to the riverbank and saw a cultivator in Hua Su's team who had been stabbed in the thigh and washed down by the surging river water. After a while of entanglement, the other 2 cultivators were also injured and withdrew, leaving only Hua Su. Surprisingly, he was pushed back to the left bank by the other 4 people, and at the same time, the team of the Great Weapon Sect successfully landed on the left bank, winning this horizontal charge. De Chi Zong. Bull nose. Senior brother Shuo, ox nose. Dozens of cultivators on the riverbank surrounded Senior Shuo, jumping and cheering to their heart's content. Hua Su stared at Shi Sheng with a look of defiance. Shi Sheng's mouth curved downwards and his eyes showed provocation as he said, "I don't agree. Unfortunately, your teammates are all injured, they are too weak." Sister Hua, Xiang Yuan, Yu Xinghe, and Gu Shuo ran over. Hua Su saw 3 people and her eyes lit up. She turned her head and stared at Shi Sheng, saying, "Do you dare to compete again?" Shi Sheng's gaze swept over the 3 people of Xiang Yuan. He knew Xiang Yuan and Yu Xinghe, but he didn't know Gu Shuo. However, it doesn't matter. He has seen the horizontal charge of Xiang Yuan and Yu Xinghe, and his strength is still slightly inferior. With a hint of sarcasm in his eyes. Are you fooled by the beating? With just the 3 of them. You'll lose even worse. Dare not. Hua Su said in a firm voice. Gu Shuo looked at Hua Su straight back and twitched his lips. Without a doubt, he was a figure like an iron lady. Life never stops, struggle never stops. But I'm just a skin condition, heavy burden. The kind that just broke through. Okay, if you want to die, I'll help you. Shi Sheng's gaze crossed Hua Su's shoulder and landed on Gu Shuo's body. He regarded Gu Shuo as a master and believed that if Hua Su dared to challenge again, Gu Shuo relied on it. Because he knows both Xiang Yuan and Yu Xinghe, only Gu Shuo is not familiar with them. Do you want me to die? You still have to worry about yourself. Hua Su said in a strong tone, the competition has just begun. Shi Sheng returned to the right bank with his team, and the 2 teams stood on the shore. More cultivators gathered and looked at the 2 teams that were about to clash. Xiang Yuan stood in the main defensive position, Hua Su in the main attacking position, Yu Xinghe in the far attacking position, and Gu Shuo naturally stood in the main amplification and healing position. Almost all the audience focused their attention on Gu Shuo, because he was too unfamiliar. They all believed that Gu Shuo was the killer of this team, and his strength was definitely comparable. But Gu Shuo had a restless heart and had not crossed this river or crossed it horizontally. Judging from the appearance, it's a real battle, life or death. However, we cannot be discouraged at this time. Although he didn't understand the world yet, he knew that no matter where it was, once the society died, it was even more painful than truly dying. Charge! Wow! Hua Su jumped down. Wow! Xiang Yuan jumped down. Wow! Yu Xinghe jumped down. At this moment, the Shishing team on the opposite side is also rushing towards the river, while hundreds of people on the left and right banks are waving their arms and shouting. Charge! 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 Wow! Amidst the cheers, Gu Shuo's blood boiled and his passion surged in his mind, jumping into the river. The 2 sides of the river fell silent for a moment, and their eyes moved with the rolling Gu Shuo in the river. Gu Shuo had just jumped into the river when he felt a huge impact and couldn't stand. The body involuntarily rolled downstream. Ha ha ha. After about a moment of silence, Shishing suddenly burst out laughing after the initial moment of confusion, tears and nose streaming out of his laughter. He even pointed to Gu Shuo, who was rolling in the river with one hand. Hua Su's face turned red, and his veins were bouncing around his forehead while he was reading. Waste. He cursed softly, turned his head and rushed ashore without looking back. Hua Shi. Xiang Yuan reached out his hand and shouted for a while, but eventually his arm fell into a pond. He lowered his head and went ashore, chasing Gu Shuo who was rolling in the water along the river. Ha ha ha, burst into laughter along both sides of the river. Asterisk in the ancient wooden house. 3 wet people sat on a wooden pier. Puff. With half a sound, Xiang Yuan couldn't help but burst out laughing. Puhaha. Yu Xinghe also laughed. Gu Shuo looked helpless and said, I was washed away by the river. Is that okay? Right, that's not a big deal. Xiang Yuan quickly nodded and said, Junior brother has only joined the sect for more than 10 days, and he's not even a member of the skin realm. My skin condition has changed. Really? Xiang Yuan and Xianxia stopped laughing and stared at Gu Shuo. Senior brother Xiang and senior brother you two have reached the bone realm in just over a year. It has been over 10 days since I reached the skin realm. What level of qualification is this? Xiang Yuan spoke up and said, actually, except for a very small number of people, as long as they are willing to practice, almost everyone can reach the skin realm. The skin realm is the easiest, and people with ordinary qualifications can usually break through one level in half a month, and reach the 9 levels of the skin realm in at most 6 months. Gu Shuo calculated that he had spent almost half a month practicing his predecessor. With a grin, he said. So, I'm just an ordinary qualification. Senior brother Xiang and senior brother Yu, how much time did you two spend reaching the 9 levels of the skin realm? Plus seeking collection. Requesting recommended tickets. Plus. Chapter 5. Solo Cultivation. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. 38 days, said Xiang Yuan. 36 days. Yuxing River. Gu Shuo's mouth twitched slightly, which means that these two will break through one weight in about 7 days, and their speed will be twice as fast as themselves. The difficulty of the meat realm has increased, but as long as you are willing to spend time, you can still reach the 9th level of the meat realm. The same goes for the tendon realm. The first difficulty in the quenching body realm lies in the bone realm. It is not that relying on time cannot achieve the 9th level, but rather that your qualifications are insufficient and the time spent is too long. Perhaps a generation will be wasted in the bone realm. The 9th level of the bone realm can be said to be 1 in 1,000. Even after passing the bone realm level, there is still one more difficult level. It's the dirty realm. If practicing bones is difficult, then practicing organs is 10 times more difficult than practicing bones. Anyone who can reach the realm of cultivating dirt can be said to be 1 in 100,000 miles. But even if you reach the 9th level of the dirty realm, it is just a common cultivation and not considered entering the immortal sect. If you want to enter the immortal sect, you need to feel angry. But those who can feel angry can be said to be 1 in 1,000,000. It's too difficult. Gu Shuo was disheartened to hear this. According to the two people's accounts, only one person in every 1,000,000 people on the Tianxian continent has the qualification to cultivate. Moreover, this is only a sense of qi, which is the most fundamental for beginners in cultivating immortals. With the qualification of only breaking through the double skin realm in half a month, I'm afraid you can't think of getting angry anymore. At the age of 20, at the thought of being 20 years old and unable to feel angry, being expelled from the sect and only being able to return to farming, Gu Shuo's heart surged with strong unwillingness. How can we improve the speed of cultivation? Unconsciously, as the sky darkened, Gu Shuo looked up and saw that Xiang Yuan and Xianxia had already left at an unknown time. Gollum. My stomach growled, and Gu Shuo got up to cook for himself. After finishing the meal, I didn't come up with a way to improve my cultivation speed. It's not without methods, such as using quenched body medicine, but he can't afford it. Sigh. Gu Shuo sighed and got up before walking outside the door. He angrily practiced Qingyun Palm. Qingyun Palm only had 9 moves, and he quickly practiced them from beginning to end, but Gu Shuo felt a sense of unease, always feeling that he had not fully explored his strength and speed. Ask senior brother Xiang and senior brother Yu tomorrow. Having made up his mind, he started practicing Qingyun sword again. Qingyun sword also has 9 moves, and after practicing, he also felt like practicing Qingyun Palm. Standing with his sword in hand, the restlessness in his heart had calmed down with his cultivation. The moonlight shone on him, making him feel particularly peaceful. A spiritual light flashed in my heart. What if practicing the Qin Yun quenching technique underwater? Utilizing the pressure of water? Yes. Will going to the waterfall and utilizing the impact of water increase the speed of practicing the Qin Yun quenching technique? As soon as he thought of it, Gu Shuo rushed towards the direction of the waterfall. About 3/4 of an hour later, Gu Shuo arrived at the large river formed by the waterfall and looked around. Apart from the rumbling sound of water, there were no more people left. He arrived at the area where Pijing was crossing, carefully walking down the river. A huge force rushed towards him, and the water depth here had reached his chest. Gu Shuo persisted for no more than a fifth of his breath before being washed down. I swam to the shore, followed the riverbank towards the downstream, and walked nearly a kilometer. Gu Shuo walked down the river again, and the water in this area was already very deep. Gu Shuo had just left the riverbank less than 3 meters, and the water was already above my head. Gu Shuo tightly grasped the riverbed with both feet and found that the impact force here was within his tolerance. He began practicing the Qin Yun quenching technique in the river water. When you can't hold your breath, jump up, take a breath, and then fall down to continue practicing. The Qin Yun quenching body technique is divided into 5 layers, each layer corresponds to one realm, and each realm has 9 forms. The first realm corresponds to the skin realm, but it doesn't mean that when you start practicing the 9 forms of the meat realm, there is no need to practice the 9 forms of the skin realm. If you don't practice for a day, you'll end up with nothing. So even if you are already in the dirty realm, daily cultivation should start from the skin realm. But now Gu Shuo only needs to practice the 9 movements of the skin realm, just 9 moves. Gu Shuo doesn't need to poke his head out to breathe from start to finish. But when he was only halfway through his first practice, he suddenly stopped. Although he closed his eyes, his face showed excitement. Because he was underwater, Gu Shuo closed his eyes. As he practiced, his spirit couldn't help but focus. With this concentration, he noticed that his eyes seemed to be moving, but in reality, his eyes were truly moving, converging towards the center, forming 2 long pillars that were then pushed inward in the opposite direction. Then he saw all the organs, meridians, bones, blood, muscles, and skin inside his body. This is an inside view. There is still this effect in sight. Gu Shuo began to focus again, and then he saw everything inside his body again. He suppressed his excitement and began to practice the 9 forms of the skin realm again. Under the surging water, his movements were somewhat distorted. But every small deformation, Zongmu instinctively corrects it and makes it change. He practiced in the water over and over again. In the past, he could practice 30.6 times in a row, but today, after practicing 12 times, he was exhausted and had to climb up from the river. Yu reads a book at www.yuyukangshu.net, and it is unclear if there is any effect. No matter what. From now on, come here twice a day to practice, once at night and once at dawn. Just look at how long it takes to break through the double barrier of skin, and you'll know if it's effective. I returned to my own cabin, took off my clothes, hung them up, wiped my body clean, and fell into bed before sleeping. The darkness before dawn. When the first light appeared from the east, Gu Shuo jumped out of the river with a loud crash, climbed up the riverbank, and ran towards his wooden house. After changing clothes, having breakfast, I went to chop wood with Xiang Yuan and Xianxia. In the afternoon, he didn't go to the waterfall with Xiang Yuan and the others. He knew that with his current strength, going to the waterfall was a waste of time. Before dawn, he went to the river to practice and cut down trees all morning. At this point, he was extremely tired and fell to bed before falling asleep. After more than an hour, Gu Shuo woke up and lay on the bed with his eyes spinning. Suddenly, a carp jumped out of the bed and onto the ground. He put on his shoes, picked up his long sword, and went outside the wooden house. He inserted his long sword into the ground, closed his eyes, and began to focus. The eyes began to lean inward, forming a reverse gaze, and everything inside became clear. Gu Shuo began practicing Qingyun Palm. After practicing Qingyun Palm, Gu Shuo enthusiastically began practicing Qingyun Sword again. When the final form of the Qingyun Sword was over, Gu Shuo collapsed on the grass and burst into laughter. Sure enough, Zongmu can improve Qingyun Sword and Qingyun Palm. Although both are minor mistakes, such as flipping the edge of the palm by 1/3 of an inch or sinking the tip of the sword by 1/2 an inch, after Gu Shuo practiced, he felt a sense of fluency. +++++++++++ seeking collection. Requesting recommended tickets. ++++++++++++. Chapter 6. Alchemy Competition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Previously, when he was practicing Qingyun Palm and Qingyun Sword, he always felt a bit uncomfortable and felt that his strength had not been fully released, but also weakened due to his moves. Now he understood that the problem he had discovered was the inability to fully develop his body's strength and speed. After correcting it, every bone, muscle, and so on in his body would be very suitable for the operation of palm and sword techniques, which would allow him to unleash his true strength. On the mountain road, a group of miscellaneous disciples from Qingyun sect walked towards the sect, and Hua Su's face was gloomy. Today, he once again lost to the team of Shisheng from Daqi sect. The atmosphere of the team was very dull, but behind them, the disciples of the Great Weapons sect were laughing and flying. A disciple of the Daqi sect shouted to Hua Su. "Hua Su, why didn't the boy who was washed away by the water come yesterday? Ha ha ha. That kid is so funny. Ha ha ha." The mockery gradually faded away, and the Great Weapons sect took another fork in the road. Bang! Hua Su punched a big tree fiercely. Xiang Yuan spoke up and advised, "Senior Sister Hua, Gu Shuo just joined the sect. Don't mention that idiot." Hua Su took a big step and left in a bustling manner. She glanced at Yuan and Yuxinghe, shook her head helplessly, and followed closely behind. Gu Shuo had no idea about these things, and even if he did, he wouldn't care. What he cares about now is whether his underwater cultivation methods are effective or not. Time passed by day, and on the 7th day, on the big river before dawn, a person lay on his back, drifting down, but his mouth let out a cheerful laughter, causing the night bird to fly up and crash away without a trace. Gu Shuo broke through to the 2nd level of the skin realm, and in 7 days, he broke through to the 1st level. Gu Shuo became even more energetic, although his current speed is not too fast, he just caught up with the speed of Xiang Yuan and Yuxinghe's cultivation. Are Xiang Yuan and Yuxinghe geniuses? The meaning behind their two words seems to be different, as neither of them is confident that they can break through to the dirty realm. But the increase in breakthrough speed ignited hope in his heart. Time passed day by day, and Gu Shuo's cultivation was rapidly approaching the triple realm of skin. This morning, Gu Shuo followed Xiang Yuan and Yuxinghe to chop wood. When they were tired from chopping, the three of them sat on a fallen tree, resting and chatting. "Gu Shuo, are you really not going to rush towards the waterfall?" asked Xiang Yuan. Gu Shuo shook his head and said, "With my current strength, can I give it to someone to mock?" "You can't say that either." Yuxinghe shook his head and said, "Do you know this Zhuo Dao Xiong from the same group who entered the sect?" Gu Shuo shook his head and Yuxinghe said, "Gu Shuo, you can't just stay in the house all day. You should also make friends with some people. Zhuo Dao Xiong from your group is really a genius. In less than a month, he has already reached the 6th level of Pijing, and in less than 5 days, he suddenly broke through the 1st level. He organized a team to go rushing towards the waterfall every day, but let him make a name for himself. He is now almost the leader of your group of miscellaneous workers. Moreover, Chong Waterfall is really helpful for practical combat, as it can help you quickly become proficient in Qingyun Palm and Qingyun Sword. I understand." Gu Shuo picked up a stone and threw it at the bird that landed on a big tree. The bird fluttered away. Almost. Gu Shuo felt a bit regretful. These days, Gu Shuo has also been pondering what position he would prefer if he joined a small team. In the end, he felt that he liked long-range attacks and didn't have the money to buy flying knives, swords, needles, and so on, so he started practicing flying stones every day when he had free time. But it gradually gave him a feeling. By the way, I heard that the Danxiang sect and the Baihua sect will publicly compete in alchemy tomorrow. Shall we go and see? Xiang Yuan suddenly spoke up. Go, you must go. Yu Xinghe's eyes turned into peach-shaped, 100 Flowers sect, many junior sisters. What competition? Gu Shuo's eyes lit up. Are there any levels? Is there a competition for refining and quenching body fluids? Yes. Xiang Yuan said, the Danxiang sect is the main sect for alchemy, and the largest resource source of the Baihua sect is also alchemy. Therefore, these two sects need to be compared once a year. The result of the big comparison directly affects the amount of orders from the Danxiang sect and the Baihua sect in the contracted mountain ranges, each time from the lowest level to the highest level. However, the first comparison is the lowest level, and if you want to see, you have to get up early tomorrow. What are you waiting for? Gu Shuo jumped up all of a sudden. Let's finish tomorrow's work today and go see the big comparison between the Danxiang sect and the Baihua sect early tomorrow morning. Ha! Yu Xinghe jumped up and patted Gu Shuo's shoulder. You are from the same path. Xiang Yuan also jumped up and said, yes, that's right. Get up tomorrow and go see the junior sisters of Baihua sect early tomorrow. Junior brother Gu, let me tell you, Baihua sect is all women, one by one beautiful and fair. The next day, Gu Shuo stepped on the light of dawn and walked towards the wooden house from the waterfall, carrying a bundle of thin branches on his back. As he walked, he took out a thin branch and woven it in his hand, weaving it in circles. When he saw his wooden house from a distance, he had already woven a wide-brimmed straw hat in his hand. Wearing a backhand on his head, Yu reading www.yuyukeangshu.net perfectly covered most of his face, let alone his eyes. Danding Mountain, there is a danding platform built by the joint efforts of Danxiang sect and Baihua sect, specifically for the annual Dandao competition. The reason for holding a big competition every year is to compete for market share. At dawn, 4 second-rate sects, 18 third-rate sects, and hundreds of non-mainstream sects from the Qianyue Mountains rushed to watch the grand competition. Gu Shuo, Xiang Yuan, Yu Xinghe, and others were also sandwiched in the crowd, looking excitedly at the Danding Terrace, where the Dandao competition would take place. Xiang Yuan and Yu Xinghe came to see the girl, while Gu Shuo came to see alchemy. When he heard Xiang Yuan and Yu Xinghe talk about the Dandao competition yesterday, his first thought was to steal knowledge. With a keen eye, he felt that he could completely learn how to refine pills, at least learn how to refine quenching fluids. If he had a body-quenching potion, his cultivation speed would definitely be able to increase by another step. So his heart was even more excited than Xiang Yuan and Yu Xinghe. Along the way, I was often ridiculed by Xiang Yuan and Yu Xinghe. Here. Look over there, there are so many girls. Shouting loudly to Yuan and Yu Xinghe, in fact, not only are they both shouting, but many people around are also shouting. Gu Shuo saw a group of people coming from both sides, one of whom was a group of women, each dressed in flowing clothes and smiling sweetly, not to mention the 100 Flowers sect. A few disciples of the 100 Flowers sect waved their hands towards the crowd and welcomed the howling of wolves. On the other side, although there were also women, the majority were men, naturally the Danxiang sect. At this moment, Gu Shuo has no intention of looking at girls, just hoping that the big competition can start quickly. +++++++++++ seeking collection. Requesting recommended tickets. +++++++++++. Chapter 7. Stealing Art. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. After half an hour of chattering, the big competition began. Gu Shuo immediately became serious. The first competition was indeed about refining body-quenching medicine, and both sides of the competition were women. Gu Shuo didn't care about these things at all. His eyes under the wide-brimmed straw hat had already protruded and turned into vertical eyes. More than half an hour later, the competition for refining body fluids came to an end, and Gu Shuo quietly closed his eyes. Junior brother Gu, who do you think can win? Xianxia asked repeatedly with nostalgia, his gaze fixed on the two women on the Dan Ding platform. Danxiang sect, Gu Shuo said. Why? Xianxia objected, I think it's the 100 Flowers sect. The disciples of the 100 Flowers sect are even more beautiful. You're right. Gu Shuo was too lazy to listen to his moans. He closed his eyes and memorized the shape, refining process, heat, and techniques of the herbs he had just seen. And it is still the process after being thoroughly improved. Why did he say that Danxiang's sect would win? Because in the improvement of Zongmu, Danxiang's sect had 6 areas that were improved by Zongmu, while Baihua sect had 7 areas. Sure enough, in the end, the disciple of the Danxiang sect won. You're really confused. Xianxia glanced at Gu Shuo and then at the woman from the Danxiang sect who won, and suddenly said. I understand now, so you prefer those who are a bit overweight. Gu Shuo glanced at the woman of the Danxiang sect and indeed gained a little weight. But where does Gu Shuo have the spiritual connection with Xianxia at this time? After closing his eyes and restoring his longitudinal gaze, he kept studying it for so long. Knowing that prolonged use can cause eye pain and require time for recovery. Otherwise, continuing to use it will shorten the usage time, and forcefully using it will cause pain and coma. He also thought about ways, such as practicing certain techniques, to extend the time of using Zongmu, but now he is just a miscellaneous disciple, how can he have access to so many? The only way now is to rest. So, he immediately closed his eyes and rested, striving to use his gaze to look for a while longer, while recalling the entire process he had just seen in his memory, repeating the memory. However, Dabi didn't give him much time, and after about 15 minutes, the second round of the game began. The content of this round of competition is much more advanced than refining quenched body medicine. This time it's a refined pill. Although it's the lowest grade pill, the gathering spirit pill, it's also a pill. Gu Shuo once again opened his eyes and focused his energy towards a pair of eyes, which began to extend outward, forming a vertical gaze under the big straw hat. The alchemists on stage started to slow down again, and every time they made a mistake, whether it was technique, heat, time, verbal spacing, etc., every small mistake would instinctively make Gu Shuo, who opened his eyes, feel incorrect and correct it. As if opening one's gaze can make him conform to the heavenly way, and everything follows nature. The wrong places are all the unnatural things he looks at, and then there is a change in his heart, so that it becomes more natural. After the refining of the gathering spirit pill was completed, Gu Shuo quickly withdrew his gaze. At this point, although his eyes were not yet painful, he had already felt soreness and fatigue. About 15 minutes later, the third big competition began. This time, the Yunling pill was refined, and the grade of the pill has been further elevated. Gu Shuo once again opened his eyes. But in less than a minute, intense pain hit, and Gu Shuo quickly closed his eyes. The whole person felt a tendency towards unconsciousness, and it took him half a day to recover. Even so, his head was a bit dizzy. He quickly squeezed out of the crowd and walked slowly towards Qinyan sect. He analyzed and found that watching the refining of the Yunling pill this time was so painful that he felt unconscious in less than a minute, not because of the duration. If he were to see the refining and quenching liquid, he believed he could see the complete process. The technique of refining the Yunling pill should be advanced, just like when he watched the competition between senior brother Yu and senior sister Zhang, he only took a glance and passed out in pain. It was because the realm of senior brother Yu and senior sister Zhang was too high. Returning to the residence of the sect, I took a nap, and by the time I woke up the next day, I was already feeling refreshed. If you want to chop wood, you naturally cannot go to see the alchemy competition. Gu Shuo and Xiang Yuan, along with Yu Xinghe, went to the old place to chop wood. Along the way, Xiang Yuan and Yu Xinghe constantly argued about the beauty of the senior sister of the 100 Flowers sect. They agreed to go and watch again in the afternoon. Senior brother. Gu Shuo finally interjected while the two of them were resting, is there any herb in the mountain that is used for quenching body medicine liquid? Do you want to pick and sell? Xiang Yuan looked at him. Gu Shuo nodded and said, I have this idea. There are all 8 herbs in the mountains, and they are not worth it. With that time, it's better to practice martial arts. Alternatively, you can go pick herbs that can be used to refine elixirs, but the places where those herbs grow are dangerous and can kill people. Gu Shuo quickly waved his hand and said, I won't go to dangerous places. I'll pick some herbs to refine body-quenching medicine. Then you go to the South Mountain. By the way, do you know what the 8 herbs are? Do you know them? Xiang Yuan asked with concern. Gu Shuo shook his head and said, please advise me, senior brother. Xiang Yuan picked up a branch and painted on the ground, while telling the names of each herb. Senior brother knows so much, Gu Shuo exclaimed. Xiang Yuanzi smiled and said, I also picked herbs to sell before, that's why I got to know these herbs. Later on, I thought it wasn't cost-effective, so I gave up. When the sect picked these herbs, Yu reading www.yuyukeangshu.net was just a task to publish. Otherwise, no one would do it. Do you know how to be a named disciple? The main task of a named disciple is to plant and pick herbs. By the way, refining quenched body medicine also requires blood. Any type of blood is fine, of course, the higher the grade of blood, the better. But the higher the level of the beast, the more powerful it is. With your strength, you can just kill a rabbit, hee. As he spoke, Xiang Yuan and Yu Xinghe couldn't help but laugh. Gu Shuo was not angry either, he firmly remembered what both of them had said. After returning to the sect, having lunch and rejecting the invitation from Xiang Yuan and Yu Xinghe, he walked alone with a medicine basket towards the south. As night fell, Gu Shuo came to the river with a full medicine basket on his back. After practicing the Qingyun quenching technique in the river, he returned to his wooden house under the moonlight. He took off the 2 fat rabbits pinned around his waist and threw them on the ground. These 2 rabbits were killed by him with stones. Now his level of throwing stones has increased significantly. He didn't venture to fight more powerful beasts, and he also felt that with his current strength, he could just fight a rabbit. Then take off the medicine basket, sort the herbs, and tidy them up. Then he took out a small jar from the medicine basket, which contained rabbit blood. The large pot on the stove has been brushed clean at noon and has now been air-dried. Gu Shuo is preparing to start refining the quenching liquid. He doesn't have an alchemy furnace, but fortunately it's not alchemy either. He just refines the quenched body medicine liquid and can make up for it with a large pot. Sitting on the wooden pier, I went through the entire process of refining the quenched liquid medicine in detail, of course, after being thoroughly improved. Then they began to set fire. Seeking collection. Requesting recommended tickets. Chapter 8. Fangshi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The first refining, even with a detailed whole process in mind, made him feel flustered. After all, he had to take care of all aspects. Although success was ultimately achieved, he knew that the effect was not very good just by looking at the color of the quenching liquid. Quenching fluid is divided into lower grade, medium grade, upper grade, and premium grade. Gu Shuo pondered that what he had refined in his first pot was not included in the product. It's okay, there were a lot of materials picked in the afternoon and we can continue. In the second pot, Gu Shuo refined the inferior quenching liquid. The third pot produces a medium-grade quenching liquid. The fourth and fifth pots are still made of medium-grade quenching liquid. Gu Shuo knew this was his limit. If he hadn't used the improved alchemy program, he would probably only have been able to refine inferior quenching liquid at most. He analyzed it and found that there should be two reasons. On the one hand, there is an equipment issue. I am using a pot, not an alchemy furnace. The other aspect is blood, just rabbit blood, which is too low in grade. But there was no other way, he didn't have the money to buy an alchemy furnace, let alone the strength to hunt more powerful beasts. I tidied up a bit. Looking at the two jars in front of me, one jar was filled with inferior quenching liquid, and only 1/3 of the amount was filled in the jar. The other jar is full, filled with medium-grade quenching liquid. As for the substandard quenching liquid, he threw it away. He stuffed two jars under the bed, exhausted and fell asleep on the bed. The next day, I continued to practice in the river water over the waterfall, and then cut wood with Xianxia and the others. In the afternoon, when Xianxia and his companions went to see the alchemy master, he followed the big river on the other side of the waterfall and searched for a hidden cave nearby. He really found one, not far from the river where he practiced, less than a mile away. The cave was not big, and there were no wild beasts inside. The entrance was on a steep cliff hundreds of meters above the ground, and it was covered by dense vines, making it difficult to be discovered. This was something he deliberately found on the cliff, climbing up and down the vines. Then he cut down trees, made a bathtub, and placed it in the cave. He is very satisfied with this cave. In terms of secrecy, there are still mountains and rivers dripping from the top of the cave. Gu Shuo placed the bathtub under the dripping landscape and calculated that it would take about 6 or 7 hours to fill a bathtub, which was just enough for him to practice once in the morning and once in the evening. Look at the sky outside the cave, it's already dark. Don't think about using body fluids today. He left the cave and went to practice in the river. Then, naturally, it broke through to the third level of the skin realm, from the second level to the third level, still taking 7 days. Before dawn the next day, Gu Shuo arrived early in the cave and took out a small gourd from his arms. It was usually used to hold water, but now it was filled with medium-grade quenching liquid. He glanced at the bathtub inside the cave, which was already full of water. He lifted one side of the bathtub, poured out some clean water, and then poured the medium-grade quenching liquid into the bathtub. The bathtub immediately turned pale red. Gu Shuo took off his clothes and lay down in the bathtub. As soon as he lay down, he felt a faint itching all over his body, followed by increasing itching. Gu Shuo gritted his teeth and persisted, occasionally looking at the water color in the bathtub. After about 3/4 of an hour, the light red color in the bathtub disappeared and returned to the color of clear water. Gu Shuo immediately jumped out of the bathtub, just put on his pants, grabbed his clothes, and left the cave, running as fast as possible towards the big river under the waterfall. A mile away, Gu Shuo quickly arrived at the riverbank and jumped into the river to practice. Practice over and over again. Under the dual effects of the impact force in the river water and the quenching fluid seeping into the body, Gu Shuo felt a clear sense of improvement for the first time. Effective. The next night, Gu Shuo, who was practicing in the river, felt another vibration in his body, and his skin fluctuated like waves again. It lasted for about 15 minutes before the vibration disappeared. Gu Shuo knew he had broken through to the 4th level of the skin realm. Breaking through one in 2 days. That's great. Looking down at my own skin, it became even more delicate. I clenched my fist and felt the increase in strength, as well as the resilience of my skin. Draw out the long sword, place the blade on your arm, slowly apply force, and then the skin was cut open and blood flowed out. My skin has become much tougher. Gu Shuo inserted his long sword back into its sheath, then put on his clothes, opened his stance, and hit a set of Qingyun palms. Bang! A palm fell on the trunk of the tree, causing it to shake violently and the leaves to fall like rain. Qianyue Mountain District City. Gu Shuo walked along the streets of the neighborhood, one shop after another, but no one paid any attention to him. As soon as he saw his clothes as a laborer, he knew he was a poor ghost. After spending over an hour browsing through all the shops, he finally walked into a small shop. The reason for choosing this small shop is not because it is small, but because the shop owner is a kind-hearted old man. Although Gu Shuo doesn't know how to read physiognomy, he also knows that physiognomy comes from the heart. People with this kind of appearance should not have much difference in personality and character. Of course, there are also those who appear loyal on the face and cunning on the inside, known as great traitors and evil people. However, you have all said that there is great treachery and great evil. If you are truly a person with a loyal and cunning heart, how could you possibly run such a small shop? Has he already achieved great success, or has he died? So Gu Shuo ultimately chose this small shop. Upon hearing someone walk in, the kind-hearted old man looked up and saw Gu Shuo again. He lowered his eyelids and ignored him. A kind-hearted businessman is also a businessman who is too lazy to deal with a laborer. It's impossible to make money from a laborer. Uncle, do you take the body-quenching medicine here? Gu Shuo walked up to the counter and asked softly. Stop. The kind-hearted old man raised his eyes this time and looked at Gu Shuo. The miscellaneous worker of the Danxiang sect. Yes. Gu Shuo's heart twitched and he gave the old man a thumbs up. Uncle, you have good eyesight. What a sight. The old man laughed and cursed. Your disciples of the Danxiang sect often send some miscellaneous disciples to sell the pills they refine, but of course, they are of poor quality. Hee hee. Gu Shuo smiled and placed a large gourd on the counter. The old man stood up, twisted open the lid of the gourd, sniffed it, and pursed his lips, saying. Indeed, it's inferior. You wait. The old man took out some small porcelain bottles from under the counter and began pouring the lower-grade quenching liquid from the gourd into each small porcelain bottle. Finally, pour out 13 bottles. Hand the gourd to Gu Shuo, then take out a spirit stone coin and place it on the counter. Take it. Plus seeking collection. Requesting recommended tickets. Plus. Chapter 9. Meet Realm Level 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Gu Shuo has already made a thorough inquiry. The shop sells quenching liquid for takeout, and 1 Lingshire coin sells 10 bottles of inferior quenching liquid, 5 bottles of medium-grade quenching liquid, or 1 bottle of superior-grade quenching liquid. As for premium body quenching liquid, it takes 5 spirit stone coins to buy a bottle. And it's almost priceless without a market, because the best quality is too difficult to refine. The shop needs to make money, so naturally the price cannot be the same when receiving goods. Gu Shuo felt that the price given by the old man was also fair, so he smiled and accepted it. After thanking him, he walked towards the door and heard the old man's voice behind him. Come back in the future when there is stock. Okay. Gu Shuo responded and walked out of the shop, but let out a sigh. He has been thinking about buying an alchemy furnace for the past few days. This afternoon, he visited every shop and learned that alchemy furnaces are also divided into lower grade, medium grade, top grade, and top grade. But even a low-level alchemy furnace requires 10 low-level spirit stones. And now he only has 1 spirit stone coin. Cut a piece of inferior spirit stone into 10 pieces, each piece is a spirit stone coin. How much quenching fluid does this have to sell? That also has to be sold. Gu Shuo became busy, practicing the Qingyun quenching technique, Qingyun palm, and Qingyun sword every day, as well as throwing stones. The rest of his time was spent picking herbs, hunting wild animals, refining quenching fluids, and then going to the market to sell quenching fluids as a miscellaneous disciple of the Danxiang sect. Of course, all he sells are medium-grade quenching fluids. In such a hurry, 18 days had passed. From the day he joined the Qinyan sect, only 2 months had passed before he reached the 9th level of the skin realm. And we have already accumulated 8 inferior spirit stones. This day. The darkness before dawn. In the river below the waterfall, Gu Shuo is practicing. But today's cultivation is different from before, because he will start from the 9 forms in the skin realm and continue to practice until the 9 forms in the meat realm. The body that has absorbed body fluids, under the pressure of the river water, the subcutaneous muscles under the guidance of the improved Qinyan body quenching technique surge up like hills, flattening and spreading throughout the body. The muscles throughout the body begin to heat up, while the unbearable itching caused by body fluids gradually weakens as these muscles accumulate. Under the joint efforts of this technique, the combination of body quenching medicine and water potential, his muscles gradually strengthened. And he found that he had been holding his breath underwater for longer and longer. What he didn't know was that even if he hadn't started practicing muscles, bones, and organs, it was because the underwater pressure and the gas formed by holding his breath were bulging in his body, echoing the pressure of the water and gradually strengthening. Although it was extremely slow, he remained steadfast. Wow! Gu Shuo emerged from the water, swam to the riverbank, wiped his body clean, put on his clothes, and ran towards Qinyan sect. He has been with Qinyan sect for over 2 months now, and he is not so unfamiliar with the sect. At least he has a clearer understanding of the miscellaneous disciples. Sui Daoxiong, who entered the sect with himself, is now in the realm of flesh. He is 2 levels higher than me. When he was in the realm of skin, he almost improved 1 level in 5 days, but when he arrived in the realm of flesh, he improved 1 level in about 7 to 8 days. I wonder how many days it will take me to break through 1 level in the realm of flesh. Gu Shuo ran and pondered. Now it seems that Sui Daoxiong has the highest aptitude and talent among his group of miscellaneous disciples. None of the remaining miscellaneous disciples have broken through to the flesh realm yet, and the fastest one is just like himself, reaching the 9 peaks of the skin realm, and there are only 2. I am now able to catch up with this speed through improved techniques such as body quenching medicine and underwater cultivation. If I remove these, my qualifications and talents will be much worse than those of the left Dao Xiong, and even worse than those of the 2 9 heavens of the skin realm. Gu Shuo couldn't help but frown. At this stage, I can catch up with these 3 advantages all the way, but with my own qualifications and talents, can I pass the bone realm level? Gu Shuo shook his head and saw the sect. Take a step and see, the ship will naturally go straight to the dock. Perhaps when it reaches the bone realm, you will find other ways on your own. 3 days later. Gu Shuo broke through to the realm of flesh, which brought joy to his heart. It seems that he will soon surpass Sui Daoxiong, but he also knows that he does not rely on his own qualifications and talents, surpassing the same group of miscellaneous disciples. Gu Shuo's life is not tense. He has already practiced Qinyan palm and Qinyan sword, and there is no room for improvement. At least in his current cultivation level, there is no possibility of improvement. In Gu Shuo's view, this is the most basic martial arts technique in the martial arts world, not the kind of flying to the sky and escaping to the earth. So the upper limit is very low. Moreover, the Qinyan quenching body technique can only be practiced twice a day at most. Practicing it too much not only has no effect, but also can cause the body to be overloaded and injured. So, after chopping wood every day, Gu Shuo still has leisure time to chat with his disciples and learn about the world. He also saw Hua Su several times. One of Hua Su's original 3 team members died in a horizontal charge, and 2 were disabled. Hua Su recruited 3 more team members and formed a horizontal charging team, with 2 of them being Xiang Yuan and Yu Xinghe. But they still haven't defeated the team of the Great Weapon Sect Shisheng. Although the cultivation level has improved, it has not reached the level of dirtiness. The difficulty of cultivating the bone realm is evident. In the lush jungle, Gu Shuo was running. Yesterday, he went to the local market and finally saved up enough spirit stones to buy the inferior elixir. Now I only have 2 spirit stone coins left on me. With the alchemy furnace, he wanted to refine high-quality quenching liquid as much as possible. This requires stronger beasts, and today he is going to stack Cuifeng, where there is another river. The river water is gentle, and no one is practicing there. But there are often various wild animals drinking water there. About 15 minutes later, he arrived at a forest about 100 meters away from the riverbank and quietly looked out of the forest. Wow, there is only the sound of water flow, but no wild beasts appear. However, he was not in a hurry either. He had explored the river many times and knew that wild beasts would always come over every day. Sure enough, after waiting for less than half an hour, wild beasts began to come one after another. But they are all some lower strength beasts. He sat still on a big tree. He wants to hunt down powerful beasts. As time passed, a wave of wild beasts walked away, and another wave of wild beasts came back, occasionally sparking fights between them. But these wilds he didn't even take it seriously, or even if he did, he didn't dare to go. Some are because their strength is too low, and some are because their strength is too strong, unable to fight. More than an hour had passed, and the sound of a moo came. A group of about a dozen bison walked to the riverbank. Gu Shuo's eyes lit up. The contract has been sent out today and signed. Everyone can rest assured to collect and read it. Update 1 chapter now, there will be another chapter later. Chapter 10. Meat Realm 9. You are listening at novelfull.audio. According to the division of strength, the head of the dozen or so bison has strength equivalent to the early stage of the meat realm, comparable to the strength of Gu Shuo, and not much higher than Gu Shuo. However, Gu Shuo knows Qingyun Palm and Qingyun Sword. This is already the strongest beast that Gu Shuo can slay. As for the remaining dozen or so bison, their strength is much weaker and they cannot pose a threat to him. Whoosh! Gu Shuo jumped off the tree and headed straight for the cow. Moo! The cow discovered Gu Shuo and let out a moo. The dozen or so cows immediately hid behind him, while the cow faced Gu Shuo and lowered its head slightly, revealing its 2 sharp horns that were over a meter long. Its front hooves scraped the ground, looking fierce. The cow didn't stop when it saw Gu Shuo and rushed straight towards it, then let out a fierce moo and charged towards him. At the moment when a person and a cow almost collided, Gu Shuo's footsteps made a mistake as he ran, and he gave way to the direction of the cow's head and came to the right side of the cow. In the interlocking moment, his long sword stabbed towards the cow's neck. When the rhinoceros suddenly arrived at the moon, turning its head at an extremely fast speed, and its horn collided with Gu Shuo's long sword. Let Gu Shuo feel a tremor in his arm. 1 person and 1 cow crisscrossed by. Then they turned around and charged each other again. When. 1 person and 1 cow fought back and forth 8 times, each time Gu Shuo performed the same action, and the cow was also the same rhinoceros looking at the moon, breaking open the long sword in Gu Shuo's hand. Step by step. 1 person, 1 cow hedging again. The distance approached rapidly, still the same as before, with 1 person and 1 cow intertwined. With a clang, the long sword collided with the cow's horn, but almost at the same time, Gu Shuo's left palm slapped out. Qingyun Palm. A faint blue color appeared on the left palm, like clouds imprinted on the palm, hitting the belly of the cow. Bang! Moo! With a loud bang, a blue palm print appeared on the belly of the cow. The cow let out a mournful cry. Originally, due to turning its head and colliding with Gu Shuo's long sword with its horns, its body was not so balanced. After being slapped by Gu Shuo and running at high speed, its huge body fell to the ground with a loud roar. Puff! Gu Shuo's figure swept over the cow's head, and a sharp blade cut through its neck, spraying blood out. Gu Shuo returned to the forest, where there were the 5 gourds he had just stored. He took the 5 gourds and began to collect blood. After filling up 5 gourds, he chopped off a cow leg and left the rest behind. He carried the cow leg and the 5 gourds tied together with ropes and ran away. Due to its bloody smell, it will soon attract other wild animals. More than half an hour later, he entered a small valley. This small valley was also found by him in his leisure time. It is very inconspicuous and the valley mouth is very narrow, making it difficult to be discovered. There is also a small garden lake in the small mountain valley. Arriving at the lake, he put down the gourd and lit a bonfire. He tidied up the cow leg in the lake water and placed it on a grill. When the beef was roasted to a sizzling oil, he took out a cloth bag from his pocket, which contained some plants he had picked from the mountains and forests, homemade seasoning, and applied it to the beef. A strong aroma spread in the air. Having eaten his fill, Gu Shuo went south to pick herbs. It was already dusk and he headed straight for Chuanyan Peak. First, I arrived at the cave and started taking a medicinal bath. The light red color inside the bathtub disappeared and turned into clear water. The tingling sensation felt like electricity, and threads flowed through my body. Gu Shuo jumped out of the bathtub, left the cave, and arrived at the side of the river. The sky had already turned completely dark, and the river was now deserted except for the sound of waves and water. Putting down the medicine basket and gourd, Gu Shuo went down the river. At this point, his position in the river had moved forward a lot, and the flesh realm had already enabled him to withstand stronger water pressure. A hint of greasiness flowed out of his pores, and his muscles were accumulating and gradually heating up. Returning to the wooden house, Gu Shuo's heart was filled with joy, as he was about to use an alchemy furnace and the blood of a bison to refine his body fluids. But the result disappointed him. The quality improved a bit, but still did not reach the top grade. And for a long time, he didn't have any spirit stones to buy a medium-quality alchemy furnace. A lower-grade alchemy furnace only requires 10 lower-grade spirit stones, but a medium-grade alchemy furnace requires 10 upper-grade spirit stones. 1 top-grade spirit stone is equivalent to 100 mid-grade spirit stones, and 10,000 low-grade spirit stones. Just think about it and feel hopeless. So, he only had one way left to try, which was to hunt more powerful beasts. Gu Shuo estimated that the blood of the beasts should have no effect, and to improve the quality of the quenching fluid, he probably needed the blood of the fierce beasts. But with his current strength, he cannot defeat fierce beasts at all. Even the lowest strength of fierce beasts, if he wants to hunt and kill them, his cultivation level must be at least 9 levels in the flesh realm. A month passed quickly, and in this peaceful time, Gu Shuo's cultivation reached the 9th level of the meat realm. Yu reading www.yuyukeangshu.net, while Zhuodaoxiong was only the 6th level of the meat realm. Gu Shuo has become the first true member of this generation of miscellaneous disciples. Just no one knows. The mountain wind howled and it was already late autumn. Gu Shuo ran through the mountains and forests, his clothes sticking to his body due to the strong wind, and hunting made a sound. Today he was going to hunt down a ferocious beast, and he couldn't wait for it. On the day when his cultivation broke through the 9th level of the flesh realm, he decided to hunt down the ferocious beast. As long as he hunted down one ferocious beast, it was likely that the quality of the quenching fluid would be improved to the top grade, which would further enhance his cultivation speed. He knew that the cultivation levels of Xiang Yuan and Yu Xinghe had reached the 8th level of the bone realm, while Hua Su had reached the 9th level of the bone realm. He is improving, and others are also improving. His gaze was no longer on his peers, but on Hua Su and them, who were 1 year ahead of him. Qianyue Mountain Range. Those non-mainstream sects are all on the periphery. Further inside there are 18 third-rate sects, and further down there are 4 second-rate sections. Previously, the hunting locations of Gu Shuo were all around the sect, relatively safe places. Because there are no ferocious beasts. But if you continue to delve deeper into the Qianyue Mountains, you will encounter fierce beasts. Step by step. Gu Shuo crossed Mount Xulan and entered the range of ferocious beasts. Gu Shuo began to be cautious, not daring to let go of his steps and run, but cautiously stroking towards the depth step by step. After walking for less than an hour and a half, Gu Shuo stopped behind a big tree. He heard a sound and quietly poked his head out from behind the tree, only to see a small mountain-like wild boar rolling in the mud, still humming. Seeking collection. Requesting recommended tickets.